healthy hazards hidden in prepared holiday meats. Today's presenter is Diane Parker, and I'm going to turn it over to her and let her tell you a little bit about herself and her credentials, and then we will get on with the presentation.
Well, thank you. That was a mouthful to say that title, so you did a good job. And like she said, my name is Diane Parker, and I'm a dietitian here at North Kansas City Hospital. I've been here in North Kansas City for about 4 years, a little over that, but a dietitian I've been a total of 6 years. And I enjoy talking about food and eating food and everything about nutrition. And we know the holidays are coming, and it's very fun to get together with family and eat. Like that's the main attraction from Thanksgiving, right? Be able to eat as much as you can and enjoy the food. But many people wonder how to watch their diet during the holidays. So many people are on special diets, and they worry about these types of diets during this time of the day in the year. So if we're talking about healthy holiday eating, sometimes people with heart and kidney issues, they have to watch their sodium, right? That is critical for them. And for people with diabetes, watching their carbs is a must. And we know that many prepared meats are brine. They might have added sugars. And if you're cooking those meats, depending on the cooking method, that can have some impact on our health. So we have to be mindful of some of those things here. So why limit sodium? Sometimes we wonder how much sodium we're eating and if we're having too much sodium. So most of us do have more sodium than we should. And I know we do this without knowing. Reducing the amount of salt that you eat in your diet can help lower your blood pressure. And sodium can also cause it can cause you to retain water. It can cause puffiness, bloating, and weight gain. So even though sodium is very important for us, and when I say sodium, I mean salt. So that's the same term. So sometimes we can be getting too much. So according to the average American diet, when we look at the statistics, we know that the average American eats around 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day. And the recommendations from the American Heart Associations are no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium in a day. But if you are an older adult and if you have high blood pressure, you should stay around 1,500 milligrams per day. So we know that we're getting more than we need. But how much is too much and what does those milligrams mean? It's sometimes hard for us to know. So if you're looking at 1 teaspoon of salt is around 23 milligrams of sodium, right? So if you're having 1 teaspoon, that's all the sodium that you need in 1 day. And like I say, even though you don't think you're adding any salt to your food, you might be getting too much sodium in your processed foods, especially processed meats. So let's look at different meats and what happens when they're brine in different solutions in different times and see what happens with the sodium content. So let's say you're having 6 ounces of cooked boneless and skinless chicken breast. And that's the brining formula over there, 2 quarts of water, 1/4 cup of salt, which is a lot of salt. And you're gonna leave this chicken in there for an hour. After this hour, you have around 270 milligrams of sodium that is absorbed into this chicken breast. And that's around less than 1/8 of a teaspoon. So yeah, if you brine meats, they're gonna absorb most of that sodium that you're adding in, a lot of it. So let's look at pork chops, and that's the same amount of salt in the same time, 1 hour, and 6 ounces again. So the pork is gonna absorb a little bit less of the sodium. So 280 milligrams is gonna absorb after an hour. And that's gonna be around less than 1/8 of a teaspoon. So let's say you're doing salmon, and the brining formula will be different for the salmon. But after an hour or two or 15 minutes is what they usually do with salmon, the salmon is gonna have around 173 milligrams of sodium. So you see that different meats will absorb sodium in a different way. And what about those cooked beans? So all those bean dishes that you eat during the holidays, most of us get beans in a can. I know you have the option of getting low sodium. Sometimes people ask, what happens if I just rinse the beans? Would that remove the sodium from the beans? So we know that if you add a brine of salt and water for 24 hours, 3 ounces of beans, which is like half a cup, they will have around 52 milligrams of sodium. So even if you rinse those beans, they still gonna have some sodium. So if you're using beans that come in a can, always find low sodium. Or if you're cooking your own beans, you can always decrease how much salt you're putting in that and use other things like herbs and spices to make it tasty without the added salt. What about turkey? So turkey is one of the most famous meats that we eat during the holidays, especially Thanksgivings. And many people do brine this. And if you see the difference here, we have 12 hours or 24 hours. So let's look at 12 hours first. If you brine the turkey for 12 hours, the white meat is going to be 150 milligrams of sodium for 4 ounces of the turkey, while the dark meat will be around 235 milligrams. But if you brine this for 24 hours with the same amount of salt and water, then the white meat is going to be around 220 milligrams of sodium, while the dark meat is going to be 260 milligrams. Also, the dark meat is going to have more fat. So sometimes that is why we say just try to eat more the white meat better. So what about sugar? Sometimes when we think about meat, we don't think about sugar too much. And we know that extra sugar might be adding to your waistline as well as putting your heart at risk. And research showed us that excess sugar consumption can be associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And you know, Halloween just happened and we still have that extra candy. So it's not just the sugar that we have in the meat, but it's the pies and the candy and all the extra cookies that we have. And if you are a person who has diabetes, you have to be mindful of how much sugar you're eating. And many times you're not knowing that deli meat especially will have sugar. So in this picture over here, we have brown sugar deli ham. So that is a given, right? Because they're putting so much brown sugar in there. So how much sugar is too much and how much sugar do we actually need? I mean, you don't have to have any sugar, but if you are eating excess sugar, we recommend, the American Heart Association recommends no more than 19 spoons for men. That is around 38 grams of sugar. For women and children, is the same amount, no more than 6 teaspoons, and that's around 25 grams. Just to give you an idea, if you have a small piece of candy, maybe like a chocolate bar, you can have around 2 to 3 teaspoons of sugar in one of those. If you have a big chocolate bar or a pie, you're probably going over the amount of sugar that you need in one day. But yes, deli meat has sugar. Many packaged deli meats, they contain the following, which is just different names. So you have to look at the labels and look at the ingredients to make sure that you're not buying the ones that have those added sugars. So if it says corn syrup, honey, dextrose, maltodextrin, so all those are different names for sugar, and you have to be just a little bit more mindful if you're watching your diet. Here's some examples of some deli meats and how much sugar they have. So if you look at the turkey on top, it doesn't have any, but it has carbs. And then the other turkey next to it will have honey roasted. So of course it has honey, so it's gonna have some sugar. And then some of them have carbs, some of them just have sugar. If you, again, have to be mindful of your carbohydrates, you have to be aware that some deli meat can have sugar too. I'm not sure you guys have heard about nitrates in deli meat. So deli meat also contains artificial flavors, colors, preservative, and they can be bad for your overall health. Those preservatives such nitrates are recognized by the World Health Organization as possible causes of cancer if you eat them too much. And it's usually what I tell people: if you eat too much, if you spend too much time during the week just eating deli meats, sometimes people have bacon and sausage for breakfast, and then they have a ham, turkey, chicken sandwich for lunch, and then they will have some more deli meat for snacks. So that's what we consider that it might be too much, and we can talk about portion sizes in a couple of slides in the future. So I'll show you how much is too much. But we know that those nitrates and those meats are highly processed. They do have a lot of sodium too, and eating them every day might not be a good option. So what about grilling? Many people ask me that too, because we don't have a lot of evidence that grilling causes cancer, but we know that cooking food at high temperatures can cause some compounds that can be carcinogenic. So the cancer-causing polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, those are called the PHAs. They just form in the smoke when the fat from the meat or chicken or the fish drips into the heat source. And those compounds just fill the smoke, and then they coat your food. And that's what can cause some issues too. So charring, burning, grilling meat, chicken and fish is any kind of meat, even if it's your healthy meats. Just by cooking them like that over high temperatures, they can cause a lot of those HSAs that are not so good for you, because they can damage your genes. And if you have a family history of stomach cancer or colorectal cancer, you should be more mindful about this, just because we know that those compounds can cause those type of cancers. So how can we reduce the risk of cancer, or how can we enjoy the meat? And I know we enjoy barbecue and grilling a lot. I always say everything with moderation. So if we shorten the grill time, that will help by reducing the time the meat is exposed to the extreme heat and flames. That will help, and you can do that by using the oven, the microwave, or a pan before grilling. You can also cut the meat in smaller portions, because if you cut the meat smaller, it will spend less time on the grill. So that will help too. You can shorten the flame exposure time too by frequently flipping the meat around. So gas grills might be safer too. So those are some things to consider. Eating more vegetables, grilling vegetables is completely fine. It won't cause any issues because they don't have the fat. Don't overdo it with barbecue. And I know that's kind of hard because we have a lot of barbecue around and it's delicious. I like it too. But if you have too much of something in a short period of time, it's going to be hard for your body to just get rid of that and metabolize that. So just try to limit how much and how often you're eating grilled food and smoked meats and barbecue and things like that. You can also trim the fat. That will help decrease some of those compounds that are formed with the fat drippings. Or just choose leaner cuts of meats. And we're talking about things like rounds and loins. Those are going to be your leanest cuts of those meats. So how much meat is too much and how much red meat you should be eating in a day? And just to make sure that I'm explaining this right, when we're talking about red meat, we're talking about pork, lamb, deer, buffalo, beef, including hamburgers. That's all red meat. And the recommendations are not to eat more than 18 ounces of cooked red meat per week. And so if you enjoy red meat and deli meat and things like that, you can still have some. You just have to be mindful of the portion sizes. And just so I can give you a better idea of what a portion size is. So here is what 18 ounces looks like broken down in multiple servings during the week. So if you have around 8 golf balls, so that will be 2.5 ounces per serving, or 6 decks of cards, that will be around 3 ounces per serving. 6 bars of soap, that will be around 3 ounces per serving. 4 tennis balls, that will be around 4.5 ounces per serving, or 2 softballs, 9 ounces, which is around 2 of those per week. So that is why 18 ounces looks like. So if you're having more than that, try to work on cutting that down. So, and you know, the party season is coming. And before we enter the party season and Thanksgiving and New Year's, it's important to have a plan and be prepared. Many people have a lot of activities and parties, and they go to a lot of different family members. So there is an excess of snacks and foods and things like that. So, but you can still enjoy the holidays and stay on track with your healthy eating. So make sure that you're always eating 3 meals per day and 1 or 3 snacks spaced evenly apart. I always say that snacks are optional. If you're not hungry, don't force yourself to eat a snack. But if you are hungry, make sure you have a healthy snack. Make sure you're eating different foods, different vegetables and beans and grains, so that way you can get more fiber. Sometimes the meals that we eat around the holidays are really low fiber, really high carbohydrates, and really high fat, like I was saying. So make sure that you're not skipping on those high fiber foods. And the portion sizes, of course, they do matter. So I have 5 tips for you so you can keep your eating plan during the holidays too. So if you feel like you're gonna go to a place that is not gonna be anything healthy, you can always bring something with you. Watch your portion sizes. Don't be afraid to get rid of throwaway food. I know for some people that's not something they want to do, but if you're gonna have a lot of food around and be tempted to eat it, oh, that's not healthy for you either. So be mindful when you're eating. Make sure you're checking your hunger cues and stay moving. Just because you're off work or you're on vacation doesn't mean that you cannot go for a walk and do exercise. So there's many options of healthy dishes that you can bring to the holidays that are not so high on fat and carbohydrates and calories. And you can work around this just to ensure that you have a healthy size wherever you go. So you can always consider bringing a lighter vegetable-based side. So portion control is the key to, it's okay for you to try different foods and different food that people are making, but the portion is the key. If you just taste a little bit of everything, you can have like a sampler platter. And let me show you what like a healthy meal should look like. We always go back to the plate method to keep your portions in check. And like you can see in this picture, you have the turkey there, you have some mashed potatoes, green beans, some cranberry sauce, and that is a complete meal. You have your protein, you have your carbohydrates, you have your veggies, and you have your fruits in there on the cranberry sauce. And this is another example of the plate. You always want to do 1/4 protein, 1/4 the starch of the carbohydrates, and you want to make sure that most of your plate is vegetables, at least half of the plate. Again, this is another example. You have your healthy carbohydrates with the sweet potatoes and your vegetables again, your lean protein, and some fruits with that dehydrated cranberry dish. So this is another example. I'm sure eating a whole chicken might be too much. But in here you have the veggies, some bread for the carbohydrates and the chicken. Eating a whole chicken, like I said, might be too much of a portion size, so always be mindful of the portions. In the gravy, be mindful if you are having issues with high blood pressure or fluid retention and things like that, because not only the meat can be salty, but we know that the stuffing can be very salty. The green beans can be salty and the gravy can be very salty too. So it's just in general, you have to be mindful of the whole meal. Don't go hungry. I know many people do this. They just wait all day long just save their space in their stomach so they can go eat later. But many times, most of the time, when you wait so long to eat, you're gonna get to the meal and you're gonna eat very fast because you're very hungry, and your portions are gonna be more than you can actually handle. So you're gonna overindulge. So have some breakfast, have a light snack before you go. Don't go completely hungry. Let's talk about the turkey. So, of course, there's no holiday without the turkey. And we know turkey is considered a healthier food option in the menu. And it's a great source of lean protein too. So like I say, go light on the gravy and take the skin off, so that way you can decrease the sodium and the fat that you're getting through that meat. Like I said, get rid of the extras. There's not shame on doing that. You can always donate that. You can just bring some food to your neighbors. But we always have an excess of cookies and candy. And it's very tempting sometimes. So it's hard to go past the cookies and don't grab one. Sometimes just putting food away, sometimes out of mind, out of sight will help. And not having that many chips and crackers and snacks around, which are pretty easy to grab when you're hungry last minute. Be mindful, take small bites, slow down, just pay attention to the people that you're hanging out with. And like I say, the holidays are time for you to catch up with people that you haven't seen in a while and have a conversation, not just eat and eat without paying attention on what you're doing. Check your hunger levels. Your body's pretty good at telling you what it needs. But if we eat too fast, so it takes 20 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain that you're full. So if you're eating faster than in 20 minutes, then the signal never gets there and it's much easier to overeat. So slow down and take a sip of water in between and be conscious that what your body's telling you. Get moving, like I was saying before. Just because you're on vacation or just because you're off, and doesn't mean that you can just go for a walk with your family. Some people like to go to the gym. Some people like to do home workout videos, cleaning the house, whatever it is that you enjoy and that you like, but make sure that you just keep moving. And don't use the holidays just to sit around. The recommendations are 150 minutes of physical activity per week. So make sure that you're always moving around and not just sitting. So a couple of takeaways that we have: just bring a healthy side to gatherings. Don't skip any meals. Eat before you go. Be mindful of the portion sizes. Be mindful of the food choices. Get active. And don't be too scared or just enjoying the food during the holidays. Just be careful that you're not overdoing it. That's the main thing. Everything with moderation. Here are some references, and we'll see if people have some questions.
Presentation. That's a lot of great tips. And there are a couple questions. There's one question that says, you mentioned brining. What does brining do to the meat? Why would you add salt and water to the meat?
Oh, it helps the meat to be softer and more moisture. You know how turkey can be kind of rough and is not the most tender meat ever. So sometimes most turkeys that you buy at the grocery store that are prepared already, they're gonna be brine because it makes the meat be softer and more moisture, more enjoyable. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then another question is, since smoking meat is at a low temperature, is it just as bad as grilling meat on high temperature?
So the temperature has a lot to do with the danger of having those compounds made on the meat. I believe that if you're smoking it to a lower temperature is better, but you still are gonna have some of those chemical compounds forming. So just don't do that as often.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for today's presentation. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for joining.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Bye-bye.